Well, welcome to a kind of midweek weird special edition of the Served podcast. We had some logistical issues this week with trying to do the Racket Rundown on Monday. So you got to hear our amazing interview with Lindsay Davenport, who kicked my ass a little bit, but I loved every minute of it. She is all class and violent eye rolls. So I'm glad. So we have our team here: producer Mike, social Sophie, Sean. Mike pitched Techie Sean, but if you want to help us come up with a name, that'd be great. But
yeah, Sean handles all the pod inner workings, edits the pod, deals with my crazy ideas and Andy's last minute reactions to maybe wanting to bleep an entire episode. Well, after we've finished it.
Yeah. Okay. So here's, and I'm in the minority, and basically what you're doing is listening in into a team meeting before we get to kind of the goings on thus far in Madrid. I kind of felt bad, like the bleep. I think bleeps are funny, right? So maybe we insert one here when I say shit, and then I think that's funny. Like, I just think bleeps are funny. So Mike and I have kind of had this back and forth where I asked him to bleep it a couple weeks ago. He gets feedback. I got pissy with him because the next week he just didn't bleep it, and there was no conversation had. So I got pissy. I'm kind of on the fence. Like, I understand it both ways. And then last night so that would be, what are we on Wednesday, Tuesday evening show. I was doing a TC Live with Jim Courier, who, by the way, is the single best commentator on earth. So it's a very light lift when I have to do TC Live with Jim. And so at the end of the show, Steve Weissman, who is our host and does an unreal job, he's just such a pro, basically said the pod is great. You know, it was like a gratuitous plug for the pod, which is great for us. That's like, you know, the whole partnership. Hopefully we can drive some eyeballs to T2 and they can help us promote the pod. It's great. They've been a great partner. But then Jim can, you know, salty in the best way, because he puts me in my place nonstop, and he has like the pedigree and he's the best commentator, and I take everything very like sensitively that he says, is basically like, yeah, the pod's great, but I can't listen to it at all. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I also said, well, that's great. We just need you to come on before the French Open. And he said, I'm busy. Hopefully he was joking. But his point was like, I can't listen to it with my kids, and I'm in the car. When I'm in the car, most of the time I'm with my kids. So it brought back the bleeping conversation in a very public sort of way. And so I'm on the fence. Like, I guess the feedback from most of you who write into, and we have social Sophie here. She saw the Challengers movie this weekend as a homework assignment, and is going to give us a short review followed by a long spoiler. So you'll have the ability to exit if you don't want the long spoiler. But I'm in the minority on this conversation. Yeah. Right.
I mean, statistically, we ran a poll on YouTube, and it's 82%, I think, say to leave it, 81%. And there's 4 of us in this room, and 3 of us say leave it, and you say bleep it. So we're on par with the national average of people saying things like let it rip, tater chip, or we're not here to listen to Andy Roddick read us fairy tales. That's a good one.
That's cold.
That's a good one.
But then, like, when one of your idols comes out and is like, basically, that's the part I don't like about it.
Yeah, I mean, the only people that were against it were people saying that they listen to it with their kids. A lot of moms, which we love their support, but then they're also like, leave it. We like it, but you know, it's hard to listen to it with my kids in the car, which I get. But one person had a great suggestion. They said, if we are going to do the bleeps, to make it sound like a player grunt, like meow.
I like Biao. Okay, no, who's
it literally says like, quote, BWEH.
I mean, what I understand grunts. What you just did is like, it's like 8-year-olds pretending to have like a laser fight. Pew, 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 pew.
So we have lots of options.
Yeah, and I texted you last night, and I basically said, isn't there a world where, and you said no, which sucked because I don't like that when you do that. When you say no. But isn't there a world where like we have a bleeped version and a not bleeped version, like when you used to go by. Hey, Sophie, once upon a time there was these things called compact discs, and they had parental advisory label. Sophie's like 12 years old, which actually she's like, yeah, late, yeah. She's older,
30.
but she just seems much younger than the rest of us because she is. But I can't believe in this entire wild west of podcast, which pretty much anything is possible, and that's kind of why we started doing it, that there's not an option to just for like a listener to click on bleeped or fucking let it rip, Tater Chip.
I mean, it's like a explicit version of an album or a radio edit, and like why can't I just say, hey, let's upload this with 2 versions?
But that's what I'm saying. That doesn't exist.
I don't know. We got to challenge Spotify and Apple.
If anyone like has any listener knows anything about this, just like kind of talk to us.
Hit us up at the podcast at servedmediagroup.com.
Yeah. I'm also starting to realize like I get very sensitive from like the icons in tennis. Like when Lindsay was mad at me, it sat heavy with me. When Jim jokes about bleeping stuff because his kids can't listen, I'm like, ugh, it ruins me. Like I'm way more sensitive.
But Lindsay's son listens to it as is and loves it and regales it.
Jagger's like 17. He's like a
Fair
man.
enough.
He has like a beard. Like it's not maybe not a beard yet, but
all right, we'll settle it in the interwebs.
Also, Lindsay sent me a text yesterday. So I think we're back to good. Totally post podcast, of which she was great, but it was more along the lines of, I get the text from her when her husband, John Leach, who was a good player at USC, played on tour a little bit, and Jagger, who's one of the best juniors in the world, they're traveling somewhere, and Jagger's text to her is like, they don't even have toilets. You just shit in a hole here. Lindsay's let me back in on those fascinating conversations.
You're back.
So I think we're good. I think that it's weird that that's my barometer for success with my current relationship with Lindsay Davenport is her letting me in on the gross family text thread. Again, we have a full movie review from Social Sophie later. Sophie, this is kind of your debut in front of the mic. You have been doing magic on all of our socials. You're the funniest person in tennis media. Like, how do you feel? How did you sleep last night?
I did not sleep. My heart is racing. My boyfriend has been texting me encouraging messages all morning because he knows how nervous I am. So
okay, this is gonna be
like
great.
That.
So the nice part is we're going to make her wait the entire show.
Yeah.
I can't wait till she brings out her script. She's like, Challengers was good. I give it an A-. I had popcorn and Skittles.
I mean, it sounds like I don't need to even do the review.
Yeah, I can't wait for the book report.
Yeah.
That will be awesome. Thank you for going to see it. So I didn't have to, but I will see it when it comes out. I'm just not going to clear 4 hours to do it yet. Maybe the review will change my mind. Lots going on in Madrid this week, starting to kind of get down to it. There are some storylines in the tournament as we advance. I'll start on the women's side. Mira Andreeva is a rock star. Just turned 17, I think, yesterday. Made the round of 16 last year in Madrid, and everyone's like, oh, that's a good breakout tournament. And then she goes and makes quarters. It's weird, too. Normally, when someone is 16 or 17, you see Serena was 17. It's like, oh, okay, great. Like overwhelming power. It's obvious what her superpower is. Rafa, when he's 17, he looked like he could bench press dump trucks at that age. Boris Becker is like, oh, he has the biggest serve that we've ever seen, right? And so 17, it's like the things, they learn nuance, but they open with like their massive skill set. Andreeva kind of plays a nuanced game at 17 years old. Her comp is almost kind of Novak in a weird way without getting carried. I'm not saying she's Novak. I'm saying the way that she wins her points is in a similar fashion to Novak. She is a magician at switching directions, right? She just doesn't let someone get set to hit the same ball twice. I still think she's going to get overpowered. She comes up against Sabalenka now. So depending on on when you hear this pod, I will either be right or wrong. I'm sure you'll let me know if I'm wrong. I still think Sabalenka will overpower her. I don't know. She still has to kind of get fully fit physically, yada, yada, yada. She's still 17, and Sabalenka is a woman, is a grown woman who can put a hurt on the ball. But super impressed with her. I love the progress that she's making. And to kind of have that superpower of switching directions and playing line at 17 is not something that most of us are fluent in when we're 17, if we're ever fluent in it. I might have been giving everyone credit. Maddie Keys is making a great run here in Madrid. Beat Coco, beat Ons Jabeur, who she had never beaten before, was down 6-0, 2-0 against Jabeur. When you have a terrible record against someone and you're down 6-0, 2-0, that is a point of desperation. It's like, this matchup is just terrible for me. And you hear me say over and over and over and over again, at the top level of tennis, it's everyone can play, matchups matter, right? Someone can be a better player, but you might rather play them just because what you do affects them in a more negative way than someone who's maybe not as good as them. But Maddie Keys, toughing it out against Jabeur, beating Coco. She switched her racket like completely this week, which is interesting. She normally plays an 18-20 string pattern. And what that means is the strings are closer together because there's more of them, right? There's more holes when you're stringing a racket. It creates a denser string pattern, which has more control, but less space between means less spin, right? So, and also she was using gut, which doesn't put as much spin on the ball as when you're using all Luxilon poly strings. So she went from an 18-20 string pattern to a 16-19, which opens up that string bed, creates more spin, but then put a deader string in it. So it's almost like adding another, 2 or 3 inches on each side of a bowling alley is essentially what she did. But her serve hasn't suffered. I could never get there. I kind of came up in the middle of my career. All of a sudden, there are these young players coming in who have been fluent in this new type of string, whereas I'm kind of antiquated with my choice of using half gut, half poly. But my problem is that the Lux, poly situation, the only place where it hurt my game was my serve, and I was very self-aware that could not be the place where I was affected negatively. But I think this is a great move for Maddie. She's looked great. And I think when you make a change and then you're able to sneak a result in the first week of that change, the belief in that process, it just gets expedited by 8 or 10 weeks.
Where does that conversation come from? Where does that decision come from to make a change in equipment?
It'll be with her team. I'm assuming you can't just pick up like a random string pattern with your weight balance. So the way it works in tennis is we basically get like a stock frame. Let's say we had, I don't know, we'll choose a guy. Let's say Wilson had rackets, and they made a similar style, but one had a more condensed string pattern. So you can use kind of the same frame. And there are all of these adjustments that the pros use off of that frame. I am not going to use the same racket as far as weight, length as you, Mike Hayden, who can't create any speed on a tennis swing. So we basically work off of that stock model and then make little adjustments, whether it's weight, string pattern, everything else. So you're still, purchasing an unreal kind of base stick, but then we probably have more adjustments based on if you're going to the European clay in Madrid a couple nights, it's been 52 degrees. So you loosen that string pattern to make up for the cold weather. So we just basically make all of these adjustments off of the stock frame. And so I think, and I would have to guess, I know Wilson has someone in-house that does all of these adjustments, which is new. We used to have to kind of go to like a Rome and Roland-Garros, who I know you're obsessed with doing a story on him at some point. He's a fascinating story. But he basically is a racket magician, racket technician. I take, Babolat would send me 20 rackets. I would send them to Roman. He would do what he did, and then they would arrive kind of customized with the way I wanted. I'm assuming it's been a longer conversation if Maddie showed up this week and had the racket she wanted. It's not just as easy as like switching, to something else. There is a little bit more of a tail, but to answer your question, that conversation happens in-house, right? I don't know if it's because, sometimes when someone's arm is hurting, they switch. Sometimes if the goal is to just bring more margin into the game, it's weird. Maddie's playing well, and she's like, I hate the way it sounds though. The ball, like gut sounds good. It's got like that. Whereas like the polys are like this little muted, like it's a muted sound. It doesn't sound as cool or as good. So she hates the sound, but loves the result. And I guess they're just trying to try something different for the clay. And that would come from Bjorn Frantangelo, who is her husband / was her interim coach going into the US Open just because they didn't have anyone. And she made semi and almost made the US Open finals. And so they're still going. But that conversation happens around a dinner table. Someone mentions something and then it becomes a real idea. And then I guess all of a sudden it's in play in Madrid. But she's looked great. The racket adjustment looks great. Thank you for giving me the space to kind of explain the nerddom of tennis rackets. Wilson makes a great racket, by the way.
I heard that.
Yeah,
I heard that.
They're good. Maybe we'll hear more from them.
Yeah,
soon.
maybe
like next week. Anyways, Iga Rybakina, Sabalenka, rolling. They've kind of separated. I think Coco was in that conversation post US Open last year. I think she's maybe struggled a little bit more. A lot of double faults. I think it's as simple as, because I think the basics of her motion are pretty good. First serve actually looks pretty good. I think she would probably tell you she's a little in her own head about it right now. I just think it's impossible to fold over on a second serve if you're not chasing the toss that's forward. If that toss gets brought back 4 inches and it's above your head, all of a sudden that creates margin over the net, creates a little bit of a safety mechanism. So I think it's an adjustment, not a change. I think she'll figure it out. I think she will be a dominant server. When you see her in practice and she's just rolling, it's impressive. Like I sit there, I'm going, okay, well, now taking that out to a match and walking it out and getting the feelings and, making adjustments while nerves are in play, while you're, really trying to commit to something different is hard. Even superheroes like Coco need time for adjustments, but second serve toss looks a little forward, needs to be back a little bit more kind of straight over or above her head to create margin and spin. And you can put a good swing on something if it's above your head on a second serve, as opposed to reaching. When you're reaching on a second serve, you can't create that spin mechanism with your hand. But I think she'll be all right. The rest of her game looks rock solid. Iga rolling people, it's like a miracle if she doesn't win a set 6-0 at some point in a match. Rybakina just got through another tough one against Putintseva. She's just winning matches. Like she's putting together a heck of a season, and all of a sudden is a threat on clay, which maybe she wasn't before Rome of last year. And Sabalenka has struggled post Australian Open for many reasons. Obviously, a lot of them personal stuff that we can't even begin to try to understand how someone is dealing with what she's dealing with. But storylines aside, has needed matches post Australian Open. There's no doubt that once she gets matches and once she gets comfortable and kind of making a habit of taking the court again over and over every week, she's back. She had a really good win over the Danimal. You love the Danimal. Producer Mike loves the Danimal.
I think she's great. She's so fiery. I love it. I mean, she got into it with a fan this week.
Yeah. She gets into it with fans most weeks.
I love it.
Yeah. I feel like she was pursuing conflict this week.
You think she needs it? It's like Tom Brady needing to feel like people didn't think he was good, like 6 Super Bowls in. Yeah.
I think, I'll put it this way. And I love Danimal too. Like, I think she's great to watch because she emotes, you never have to wonder what she's thinking. Like, you could watch her for 4 points and know what's happening. Like, you could get pretty close to guessing what the match score is. So she had a big winning streak. Sabalenka took her out, and the Danimal is still yelling at people, which I love. It's like you can't be shocked when you go to Europe and people whistle when you go to talk to the umpire. It happens 100% of the time, and it gets worse at Roland-Garros. Like they'll whistle at their mom's cooking. I'm telling you, they'll heckle most things. So that should not be surprising to her, but it's fun to watch.
The whistle might be like a superior heckle.
It's so
booing, and it's so
passive aggressive.
It's so elevated.
It's so passive aggressive. Used to piss me. Like if someone boos, like, okay, we know where you stand. You suck. The whistling's like, oh, What do? Whistle back? Like, you can't whistle back at someone. Like, someone's like, and you're like, oh yeah, well. It's so passive aggressive. And if they whistle and then you're like, fuck you, it's like you're the asshole.
They're like, whoa.
Yeah, whoa,
whoa.
God, easy, guy. Cheapers.
Whoa.
Yeah. It's like the most passive aggressive, perfect taunt ever. Not that I've thought about it. I said something on Tennis Channel Live last night, and I think it's a good point. So like Sinner, Alcaraz, obviously, as far as the next generation, they're the guys, right? They've major winners. There's a fluency now on all surfaces. You can put them, you could play them in a potato patch, and they would find a way to get a result. We know what their top line is. Their top line is as good as anyone in the world on most days, maybe except for each other and Novak, right? I think physically. They're more dominant than Medvedev. Medvedev is an unbelievable player. But on their best day, if they play well, they have to feel pretty confident in that matchup. Medvedev has said as much because he's like a human truth serum. But these guys it's not like Indian Wells where they were going to the draw and it was 2-3, 2-4, and they were just ripping people, right? They've struggled a little bit in Madrid. Alcaraz coming off of a bit of a forearm issue where he doesn't know how hard he can go at forehands. Sinner dealing with a little bit of a hip issue, but they're winning matches, and they're physically compromised. They're not playing a 10 out of 10 for them, which they don't have to, right? And I'm not saying this is a criticism. We're going to get to the point where this is more impressive than when they have complete control of their health, their games, etc. They are so confident with their struggles right now, right? They're Alcaraz comes in, no matches, and plays a ugly third set to close out Struff, but wins. Sinner struggled the last two matches against Pada, that guy. And then comes out against Khachanov and loses a set also. Just not the perfect button-up Sinner that we've been entitled to and spoiled by in the last 6 months, and gets through. And I weirdly feel like they've gotten to the next level of me feeling entitled to their victories when you know that they're physically compromised. Like, that's the next level of greatness, is being confident in your struggle, not in your successes, not when everything's firing, not the 15 or 20% of the year where you can look at your coach and be like, I have complete control of the ball, right? Because that's all it is, 10, 15% maybe. And then, 80% is kind of middle of the road, and then 10% is like, I suck. They're so confident in their struggle right now, which is has to be intimidating for the rest of the tour. It's its own, I give them more props for establishing kind of win-loss dominance when it's imperfect, especially with Alcaraz. That was the knock on him, and he is quickly figuring that out. Nice story from FAA. Felix Auger-Aliassime hadn't won more than 2 matches in a tournament since October. Former, top 8 guy. Has had a really good week, had a big win over Casper Ruud, is generally one of the most well-liked guys on tour. Doesn't get talked about enough because he just does things the right way, right? There's no histrionics. There's no Danimal. There's no Medvedev. There's no Holger Rune where, we spend time. There's no Rublev. He just does his job every week. And by the way, has gone from 8 and then dipped down to outside the top 30. The opposite of Danimal, has struggled by his own metrics, not by, most humans on earth, but by his standard, for a year and a half, maybe, 18 months, 2 years. It just hasn't been perfect for him. You wouldn't know it for 1 second that he is struggling with anything, that he is anything less than confident. The attitude on this guy is something I wish I would have been capable of. So impressive.
Sean actually had texted me. He's like, Casper just fell to a guy ranked 35.
Yeah.
And when you look it up, you're like, well, this isn't a guy ranked 35. This is a good player.
Oh gosh. He's made slam semis. He made World Tour finals a couple years ago. and was one of the guys when he was 2021 that you're going, okay, he was in the conversation with the Zverevs and the Caspers and the whole deal. Surprising win on clay, little deceiving. Madrid is the fastest clay court on earth. There's altitude. They kind of build their stadiums where it feels indoors. When you're listening to that second court, that second stadium, it sounds like an indoor court. When you're hitting a ball, it has like an echo. So you do see some weirder results from the clay court specialist. Tsitsipas comes in and takes a dive this week. Casper loses to FAA, which he is better than FAA on clay. So you do see some weird results, especially Taylor Fritz is playing great this week. He is capable. He made a semifinal in Monte-Carlo last year. But this Madrid court for him is great. Ball gets through the court. The first strike tennis works more on this clay court than probably any other clay court in the world. So props to FAA and credit to FAA because nothing but admiration for the way that he goes about his business. I hope he gets all the success that he's kind of earned by virtue of his attitude and hard work. This guy Lehečka, and we're gonna get into Rafa because that's obviously the big story of Madrid that we needed to spend some time on. This guy that beat Rafa, Lehečka, he's been around for a couple years, kind of streaky results, up and down. The guy was serving like 144. He was serving over 140 on command against Rafa. He's 6'1", by the way. Like he's not one of these, 6'8" serve bots. The guy can rip it and committed to a game plan. Berdych was in his box, which is cool. This guy can create as much speed on command on a serve as maybe anyone this side of Shelton. I'd venture to say his first serve speed is he hits a little bit flatter, doesn't have the variety of spin of Shelton or the general leftiness, but I knew he was a big server. I didn't know he was 144 on a cold night on a clay court type big server. I was really impressed with him. And also I want to give him credit because talk about someone who understands the moment and their place in it. Beats Rafa. Probably he's beaten Rublev, I think, twice when Rublev was top 5. So by ranking, not his biggest win, but Rafa, Madrid, clay, that's your biggest win. That's your biggest, maybe not your biggest win, your biggest moment. This guy going against 12,000, 13,000 Spanish fans, dealing with the jitters of taking Rafa out and potentially probably the last time he'll play in Spain. And then winning and having a completely neutral reaction, a quick wave, knowing your place, exiting stage left because Rafa needs to be celebrated. I'm a fan of this guy. I thought it was a super, super classy move. It didn't seem like he was doing it for the moment. It's just, it felt like it was coming from a place of respect. And the guy can rip at 144 on command. I was really impressed with Lehečka, both kind of the way he went about his things and game wise. If he can start repeating that type of performance more consistently, be pretty fun to watch.
I was looking at the draw yesterday, and I saw Tommy Paul and Medvedev playing doubles together. How normal is it for guys who seemingly don't have a connection outside of tennis to play doubles together in a tournament like this? Yeah.
I mean, well, the tennis ecosystem, you're with these people. So even I'm from Russia, you're from the States. What's our common ground? Tennis is the common ground. The tour is like a big traveling dysfunctional family where you have brothers and then you have, cousins you don't like, it's just the way it is. But I think especially during these extended events, the ones that are 11, 12 days, you get some really like awkward, weird doubles pairings, and they probably get along. Like they seem to both have the personalities where they can take a joke. And Medvedev, for all of his kind of outbursts and where people don't like him sometimes, and he's very capable of getting the booze away from the court, kind of similar to Murray, is great and super well liked. It could be as simple as, hey, we're friends. Who do you want to play with? I don't know. Who's around? Tommy Paul lost early, and now these condensed 5-day kind of doubles runs. It's like, yeah, you want to stick around? Sure. okay, Tommy Paul's sticking around. You want to play with him? Or Medvedev's like, I want to play doubles in Madrid. Tommy Paul walks by in the locker room. Hey, Tommy, you want to play? Yeah, let's do it. It could be as simple as that. But you do see a lot more of these really cool kind of singles players uniting, which is kind of what they're trying to push now, which I think is correct. And we can get into that new format maybe this week. Maybe we'll do it with Wertheim this week. Basically condensing the doubles into 5 days, not paying for 2 weeks of hotel and practice. Think what you will. We can take a deeper dive on that.
But, and I think it's fun because it gives, the people attending, and it gives extra exposure to the game and the top talent in the game, and it's not as stressed as a singles, and hey, they can win a little bit of change.
And you're seeing Medvedev on like a smaller court.
Yeah.
It's just cool. If you're a 12-year-old and you want to see your favorite player, you buy a ticket a month in advance. It's kind of a crapshoot. If you're actually gonna be able to see that player, it doubles the chance.
Oh God!
Fucking nailed it.
Nailed it. Can we bleep that?
What's going to happen is we're going to end up sending like an edited show just to Jim Curry and his kids. Sean's like, no.
We'll do that. We'll just post just that.
Yeah.
We'll put it on YouTube Kids.
Yeah. YouTube Kids. That's funny. That would actually be hilarious.
We'll just put your like head bobbing around. We'll just do it like a little animated.
We can do.
Sorry, Sean. We just came up with a good idea.
We can do more of Mike's impression of a tennis grunt. Pew, pew. Pew, pew.
Can we get back to Nadal though?
We've completely lost the plot.
Yeah. I do want to get back to Nadal. I think watching, how he was honored coming off, hearing his post, match commentary. I just think it's cool that it's not like an injury taking him out, right? Like he's getting his little moment in the sun. That's not just the Laver Cup.
Yeah. So there's a couple things, and every conversation I've had about Rafa is like, on TC Live, like Weissman goes, well, where does this leave him for Roland-Garros? I'm like, are you talking about like legacy celebration of Rafa, and which is so deserved, and he's so beloved, and he's not even polarizing at all. Everyone just loves him. Or what we saw on court. Now, at the beginning of the tournament, he said, if I feel the way that I feel physically right now with confidence, not knowing what I have, I don't know if I'll play Roland-Garros. I tend to not believe that. I think he's the master of under-promising and over-delivering. During his prime, we've talked about this on the show before, he'd be going into like first round of Roland-Garros against someone ranked like 70 in the world. He'd be like, I don't know. It could go either way. I'm like, it'll probably go your way. Yeah. And I used to not really believe it. I kind of was like, oh yeah, right. I'd like go full Davenport violent eye roll when he would say it. But then I honestly think he just works from a place of this could go wrong. I'm going to hustle my way to make it not so and give my best effort. So beginning of Madrid, says he doesn't know if he's going to play Roland-Garros. I think this tournament result was a 10 out of 10 for him. Before we get to the fans and the adulation, let's call balls and strikes on tennis and where he is currently. Imperfect. Still not going after the serve completely. Not getting out of the corner on his backhand side is the biggest thing that I see, is still able to create all of the problems with a matchup on a lefty. The ball seems like it's getting up when he's going after his backhand. It looks really good. But if you would have told him, what's the max amount of matches you would want to play in Madrid? And let's be smart, not the competitor, not the person who was down a set and a break at 1 a.m. in Madrid and still trying to fight back and win that match against Lehechka. If you ask his team, like a sober moment, what would you have wanted to happen? I'd want to see Rafa extended physically. Okay. Kachin match was over 3 hours long. I'd like to see him get some easy reps. Okay. Darwin Blanche was 1-0 at the beginning. And I'd want to see him in those tense moments, which there were plenty. 4 matches is about max that you'd want. You don't want him going 6 or 7 matches and then all of a sudden Rome might not be in play. And then you're 2.5, 3 weeks between matches going into Roland-Garros. I think this is perfect. Now, does that mean that I don't have concerns about his game as it currently stands? No, I think there are concerns. I think he's the first to tell you that. But I think this was for this moment in time, I think this was about perfect. And I know he would have loved to have struggled through and gotten through Lehečka. And I actually think that's counterproductive in the march towards Roland-Garros. As far as the fans, like, I was getting goosebumps. Before his second round match, he walks out and he's doing his thing with his bottles in his bag and his, all of his particulars. And the crowd is just ready. Rafa, Rafa, Rafa. I am 1,000% confident he felt appreciated this week, and it was effusive. It was well-deserved. It was a celebration of what he's done. The King of Spain was there. All of the football players, it felt like everyone was coming to pay tribute to Rafa in his home country. The ceremony afterwards was great. That's expected. The reaction was perfect. I think the preparation for Rafa versus what his body can handle was a 10 out of 10. I thought the crowd and the note they hit with cheering for him while also being respectful of the other players was a 10 out of 10. I think the fact that his body pulled up and we didn't see what we've seen too often over the last 2 years where he runs and then kind of pulls up and you can tell something's wrong. I forgot to look for injuries at a certain point this week with Rafa, and it was just watching him play tennis. Says he's going to play Rome, which he should. He's won it 10 times. And then I think if he can get 2 or 3 matches in at Rome, I think he's actually, it's not the preparation that's perfect, but it's as good as it could be based on the conversations we were having a week ago. I'm excited. And it's also going to be really fun when the draw comes out and Rafa is a floater in that draw. What seed could potentially get Rafa first round? I don't know that there's been as fun of a kind of a floater disruptor. Like, he's never played that role there. Not one time. I mean, imagine if imagine Alcaraz first round. Novak. He could play Novak in the first round of a Grand Slam.
That'd be crazy.
Or do you get like the second round matchup where we get to talk about it for 3 or 4? Like this, it's just great. It's just great. Where we were a week ago versus where we are now with Rafa could not have gone better on all fronts. Something else that I am positive will go as well as it possibly can is Sophie's movie review.
Ooh.
Oh, she's not smiling. She's serious. She's in.
So is that it for the Racket Rundown?
I think that's it for the Racket Rundown, brought to you by. Should we do it yet? One more week. I sent a text. I think we have to wait.
Do we have to wait?
Yeah. I think we wait. But I'm happy for Maddie Keys, and it's great that Wilson seems to be doing a great job.
Who?
Wilson. But we'll save the Racket Rundown sponsor for next week. The backstory is producer Mike wouldn't get off my ass about we wanted Zendaya on the show, and we knew it was a pot shot. Like, there's no chance, right? She has bigger and better things to do. She eventually, we would have gotten stuck because eventually they said we're not doing any like specific tennis press. They could be part of like a junket.
She turned down Rich Eisen and stuff too. Like, it wasn't just us. It wasn't just tennis.
Totally. There's no bitter Betty about us. We don't feel entitled to any guest we have. But the conditions, which ultimately I think we would have still been turned down, which would have been annoying, we're going to set up a screening. You basically have to go see the entire movie. They're going to send us talking points, the whole thing. I'm like, listen, I got like 8 soccer games. It's an exaggeration. I had one. I had one soccer game. It like maybe a tennis lesson.
Takes a lot out of you.
Yeah, it was weekends. I travel, whatever, couldn't do it. I do want to see it. I am interested in it. I think tennis is having this pop culture moment where, there's all the documentaries on Netflix. There's, tennis projects that have been, yet to be announced that are going to be signed off on major streamers. It's great that someone like Zendaya is interested enough in a tennis storyline to take this on to make it the number one movie in the country. I couldn't go see it on those terms, but Social Sophie, who is a magician, if you don't follow us on our socials, you are missing the most humorous part about the Served podcast and team. I gave her some homework to go see Challengers over the weekend and then give a review. So we're going to do kind of a topical review, and then we're going to ruin it for everyone. So I will give space after the topical review. So you can listen to this part if you haven't seen the movie and you want to, and I will clearly make a distinction when you should turn this off before we go into kind of the full down breakdown. So Sophie, did you see the movie Challengers this weekend?
I saw the movie Challengers this weekend. I saw it alone.
That's tragic.
Not,
okay. Well,
yeah.
Seems
No, I didn't really have to include that part.
Yep.
I'll get the tennis out of the way, I feel like, first, because I saw it as someone who makes memes for a living. But I can say, like, the tennis looked to me very natural, whether it was the editing, the insane slow-mo, all of the techno that they added. Like, they maybe added a lot of artful elements to make it look more natural, but to me, it looked really good. You've seen videos of Zendaya working on her footwork. She worked obviously with Brad Gilbert. Like, it looked really natural. So it's just a testament to their acting, really, maybe not their tennis skills so much, but that part looked really good to me. Again, to me. A non-spoiler review.
Okay. Would you recommend a friend go see it?
Totally.
You would.
It took me, the movie's 2 hours and 11 minutes. It took me 2 hours to come to that conclusion that I would actually recommend that my friends go see it.
Oh, so it was a late yes.
It was a very late yes.
Yeah, she wrote to me. She said first 2 hours, and then she's like, last 10 minits though, I might see it again.
Bingo bango.
I will see it again. And another thing, like,
you'll see it again.
I will see it again. It's very rewatchable in the sense that, like, I'll get something completely new the second time, probably the third time, probably the fourth time.
So if we were going to put up little Andy faces on the screen, 5 being the best, 1 being the worst, how many smiling Andy faces do you give it?
I would say like 3.7 or 8, 3.8.
Wow.
So like 3/4 face.
3/4 face.
Yeah.
Go see Challengers.
See Challengers.
She recommends it.
I do.
The last 10 minutes saves the first 2 hours, which is kind of fun. The tennis looked okay. Props to BG. I'm sure he is just glowing with the success of Challengers. If you do not want to hear any spoilers, thank you for having listened to Served. If you want to hear the rest about Challengers, keep listening. I'm going to give a 5-second pause, and then we're going to let it rip, Tater Chip.
Okay, she's ready.
All right. Okay. Now, Zendaya's character, you were going to say something.
Zendaya's character, Tashi Duncan. So she gets an injury. I don't know that she ever really tries to make a comeback in the sense that she plays again. They show her playing for a little bit. She can't make it. She kind of resigns herself to coaching and trying to get... She's kind of the puppeteer of these two men, trying to get them to play some really good tennis. All she wants to see this whole movie is just really good tennis. It's all she cares about, more than her marriage, more than
she's married?
She's married.
Wait.
Okay.
She's married. All I've seen is this scandalous scene, and neither one of them is her husband.
That
and she's
scene
married?
is pretty irrelevant. Like, it's not irrelevant. I see why they used it. I don't think it's gratuitous. Like, I can see why they put it in there, but it's such a tiny part of the movie in the beginning, and there's 2 hours after that happens.
Was she married during the scandalous scene?
No, but she does marry someone that was a part of said throuple.
Oh, that makes a weird interaction if you see the other guy again.
You can tell that from the trailer.
So
you can?
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. So she's going back and forth really the entire time.
I sent it to you.
Perhaps you should.
I texted it to this
I ignored
it. Emailed it.
I ignored it from you.
Thanks.
About 7 times.
Okay. I'm so glad we're having this team pod. This is great.
The way that they save it really is what makes the movie. I mean, it's real. I mean, you're sitting there the first 2 hours going like, what's the point? What are we getting at? Why are the stakes so high? Why does any of this matter? I don't like any of these characters. They're all...
You didn't like any of the characters for 2 hours?
But you're not supposed to. They're all the villain. Like, that's what you learn, is that everyone's the villain. You're not really supposed to, I think, like any of them.
It does kind of sound like the tennis tour.
And maybe that's the point. And I think you settle in by hour 2 going like, okay, I'm not supposed to like any of them. But the whole time you're going like, why are they so sweaty? Why is it
Why are they so sweaty? Because they're playing sports.
No. It's more than that. It's bigger than that.
Just sweating all the time. Just sweating in the coffee shop.
Like, I didn't realize what part of it was going to make. I'm like, they're like really sweaty.
The
like
sweat budget was like astronomical for this film.
My God.
I feel like I'm living my reality.
Yeah, you might take this
Like the
personally.
director's always like, more sweat.
Yes, more water bottles. They're so
There's
sweaty.
a lot of water bottles.
Yeah. Well, they're just, and it's so windy in New Rochelle. Like the wind budget was also, it's like the windiest time of the year
Which
ever.
is weird.
Like
Normally wind counteracts sweat a little bit.
you would think so, Andy.
But no.
But it
Movie
doesn't.
magic at its best.
It's just like so, and they're just trying to make it an artful movie, but it's so dramatic. And for the first few hours, you don't really like understand why. It doesn't make a lot of sense. You're just like, it kind of looks like it was filmed in the 80s or like through an Instagram filter, but they're in 2019. And you're like, why does, I kept being like, oh yeah, they're in 2019. Like this was 5 years ago. Like, why does it look like it was filmed in the 80s?
Was there a reason why it was 2019?
Well, they're jumping back and forth. I think they were just trying to keep them young. So they're jumping back and forth. They jump back and forth a lot. So they go back to the 2003 or 4 US Open, and they're 18 at the time. So they're like, some of them are taking the college route. Some of them are about to go pro. 2 of them go to Stanford, I think, to play tennis. And so I think by 2019, they're just trying to keep them young enough, maybe. I don't know why they didn't do it modern.
So there's
day,
like
to be honest.
nostalgic look backs also?
Oh yeah, you're in it.
Oh, what up?
2 hours seems like oh, he's in it?
Yeah. To be fair, like that's for tennis fans who are just kind of trying to see a tennis movie. I can imagine that it's a pretty nostalgic feeling going back to the 2003-4 US Open and seeing like big posters of Marty and Andy, and like that part is kind of fun. It's a little bit
Are you
nostalgic
gonna
in
get a
that
residual
way.
check?
No.
No.
I got a random
I also
text
wondered
from
that.
BG where he was just on one. He's like, oh, movie. They want to put a poster up. Can I send you some paperwork? I'm like, okay. And like the first version of what they sent was like, whoa. I was like, you literally have permission just to put a poster up. They're like, use your like you promo. I'm like, it was dumb. So I had a little bitterness coming in. Why did yeah. There was anyways.
So basically they meet. Tashi Duncan is this like probably the it junior tennis player. She's like playing at the junior US Open.
Yep.
Okay. She's on all the posters.
Are you asking me or telling me?
Big question.
Yes, there is a junior US Open.
Okay.
Yes.
That's where she's playing. They are also tennis players. Their names are Art and Patrick in the movie, Mike Feist and Josh O'Connor, who are the 2 guys, and they see her playing tennis, and they're both wildly in love with her from the jump. And they're like, we'll do anything to talk to Zendaya. So they go to this after party. They're like, we got to shoot our shot with Zendaya. They do. She is kind of into both of them, but also not at all. And they're like, please come hang out with us. Please come to our hotel. It's a little desperate. She comes to their hotel. They're like drinking beer. Like they're 18. They're like drinking beer in a hotel room together. And they're shooting her shot with her. They don't know who's going to get Zendaya. She pretty much tells them whoever wins the match tomorrow gets my number. And she also asked them like, so what's the deal with the relationship with you guys? Have you guys ever sort of attempted any sort of like relationship with each other? And they're like, no, absolutely not. And so
What?
she's the tennis witch. Like all she wants, she's just from the jump trying to get them.
The tennis witch.
She's just puppeteering good tennis the entire time.
Wait, but whoa.
She gives this monologue about how tennis is like a relationship, and there's 15 seconds where you're really locked in with your opponent, and it's like all you can think about, and you know exactly what they're thinking, and it's this really magical thing. And she gives this monologue, and then she goes to the hotel with them, and they're like, they start like kissing her a little bit. That's as far as it goes. Then she asked them to start kissing each other. And then she's like, all right, I'm out. See y'all tomorrow.
What?
Like all she wanted was to get them to have this like
Curveball
moment of sexual tension.
Wait.
So they play good tennis.
So they
Right? Okay. What if I was just totally wrong? He's like, did you even see challengers?
What would be hilarious if none of it was true?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That would be so
And then,
embarrassing.
so that's the first like 20 minutes. And
20
then,
minutes.
And then there's like another nearly 2 hours of just strange tension,
So-
trying to play good tennis.
So I don't want to go too into the weeds.
Right.
Because Jim Courier's kids might be listening. But so they kiss each other and then she ends up marrying one of them. So some random friend of theirs.
She dates one of them who is first. He breaks up with her.
So this guy, I'm asking questions. So this guy potentially could be at the wedding being like, I've made out with both of them.
Potentially, but that's not how it goes down. She ends up dating one of them. Then she gets her knee injury. They sort of try to act like it's his fault that her knee shatters in the middle of a match. Like that's sort of what they imply because they had just gotten in this big fight right before her match. And then her knee shatters and it's kind of like supposed to be his fault. So they break up.
Every time I argued with Brooke, I'd sprain my ankle right afterwards.
Yeah.
He'd be
Jeez,
not in good shape.
that old song and dance. The broken leg after a fight.
Yeah, and it's a dramatic knee snap. I mean, it snaps and
I've seen it. It looks like I've seen that in the trailer.
Yeah. There you go.
It's a dramatic
I
knee.
gasped. It was like
It's like an injury that I've never seen in tennis before.
Yeah.
It was like an NFL injury. Mm-hmm. Like your kneecap goes sideways.
Yeah. It was like the opening scene from Saving Private Ryan. I was like, oh my God.
Round of applause for Sophie. Look at that.
I don't know that I said a single thing just now.
Just nailing segments.
Did you black out?
Thanks.
know-
I don't remember any of that.
What happened? What happened? Sophie crushes. Go check out our socials. Social Sophie does all of it with pretty much no input. She basically just makes fun of me the whole time. So if you like that sort of thing, go check it out all over. We'll put all the social feeds up. Mike, you got anything else for me, producer Mike?
No, I think great racket rundown. Great. It's exciting to do a good racket rundown in the middle of a tournament.
I know.
You know?
I don't know. We'll mess around with it. See what the reaction is. So let us know if you like kind of the midweek add-on pod. Who knows? The beauty of this situation, this pod, is that we can pretty much just do whatever we want most of the time. But we will have a show for you every Sunday on T2. Tuesday audio release for that. And then normally that's where Racket Rundown is. So definitely check us out on Tuesdays for your audio. And we will see you, I guess, next time, hopefully this Sunday on T2. If not next week.
Pew.
Pew, pew.